All right, we got a couple of stories we're going to get to. First, let's play a couple of clips. Glenn Greenwald just interviewed Evo Morales in Mexico. Evo is actually going to be going to Argentina, where he has been given refuge by the new Argentinian government. And I mean, look, these are why these blocks matter. It's very important that the Fernandez-Kirchner government is in power right now for a variety of strategic reasons for left viability across the hemisphere. I would recommend everybody watch this whole video. I'm not sure yet. Glenn might be coming on this show to be talking about it. But I want to play a couple of clips. The first clip is Evo explaining the coup process to Glenn Greenwald. And again, there's people who still complaining about this to me. And I'm honestly dumbfounded. It's a coup. You can, I literally, it's weird to be the pedant here, but like these things actually have meanings. The military said to leave. It's called a coup. In Egypt, the Morsi government, there were millions of people. There were more people protesting Morsi than the original uprisings against Mubarak. And it was a coup because General Sisi took power in the country, circumventing democracy. Now, all arguments defending this have been knocked back to, he said he was running for a fourth term, man. Because the OAS, you don't hear about that report anymore, do you?
Yeah.
Do you hear about that OAS? I don't hear about that OAS.
Not at all.
report.
And it took them, how long did it take them to release their final report? I mean, almost like a month now. Compare that with the 3 days that it took them to push forward these like very inflated claims about election fraud in Bolivia.
And what did the final report say?
It did not.
It did not say that this was a stolen election.
Yeah, exactly. Think about that for a second too. With almost a state apparatus now in Bolivia that's completely, wanting you to make this accusation for them, and giving them everything that they need to make that conclusion if they had the ability to do it.
So we have an election where Evo Morales wins a fourth term. There's no credible allegations otherwise. I'm sure there's irregularities, although frankly, when you hear irregularities, you either need to enlarge, like there's irregularities in the United States. In fact, there's mass voter suppression in the United States. So, and that's a problem everywhere. But when you get to a point where you were saying literally, this is a reversal of a voting outcome, that has never been credibly argued in Bolivia by anybody. Then you get to fourth, he's running for a fourth term. Well, okay, the one example is there isn't a big meltdown about Angela Merkel, who's been in office longer than Evo Morales, right? And then the other one is, I'm not impressed by term limits arguments. If you can go out and win, you win. The guy won. And the only critiques, as always in these situations, that come from Evo Morales that are valid are people on the left who don't support this. And if you can point me to people on the left who support this, the term AstroTurf was invented for a reason. I'm talking about people on the actual left connected to social movements who might have had a critique. They did not want him to be deposed, have the military ask him to leave. And I guess apparently when you are asked, it does not make it a coup because it's polite. And then have a giant, massive Bible carried to the Congress. The empowerment, and you'll hear about one of them, of far-right religious squads across the country, terrorizing the base of Evo's party. There's been mass killings, empowerment of military and police. That is a coup. You can have a critique, you can have a conversation, but you can't dodge reality. This is Evo Morales talking with Glenn Greenwald about how that coup took place.
First of all, President Morales, thank you very much for taking the time to speak with us today. Ever since November 10th, there have been numerous reports that the Bolivian military suggested that you resign the presidency and leave the country. You have said that what happened was a military coup, that you were forced to leave the presidency. Can you tell us exactly what it is that the military and the police did and said?
Las elecciones nacionales se realizaron el 20 de octubre. Al día siguiente, 21, el partido perdedor Carlos de Mesa pidió a sus militantes a movilizarse, convocó a movilizarse para rechazar los resultados de las elecciones nacionales, sobre pretexto de fraude. Y en la noche del 21 de octubre empezaron a quemarse tribunales electorales departamentales. En toda Bolivia, en 5 departamentos quemaron durante la semana. Ahí empieza el golpe de Estado porque la Policía Nacional no da garantía de seguridad a tribunales electorales departamentales, pero también las actas de sufragio de las elecciones del 20 de octubre. Pasaron la semana, desde Santa Cruz, Comité Cívico Cruceño a la cabeza de Camacho, piden renuncia, movilizaciones, paros. Resistimos hasta el día 8 de noviembre. 8 de noviembre, primero la policía se amotina y se suma al golpe de Estado.
Sin embargo, no podemos quedar indiferentes ante nuestra sociedad.
El día 10 en la madrugada, la OEA también se suma al golpe de Estado. Finalmente, el día 10, las Fuerzas Armadas dicen que renuncie. Sin policía, sin Fuerzas Armadas, la derecha movilizada, no hay ninguna seguridad. Por tanto, para evitar más derramamiento de sangre, renunciamos con el compañero Álvaro García Linera. Hermanas y hermanos.
So that's what happened. Basically, he explained how essentially paramilitary forces were mobilized in wealthier, more kind of Spanish-identifying regions of the country, would be my understanding. Then there was mass mobilization. The OAS put out this report that was misleading on election fraud, to say the least, if not outright dishonest and supportive of opposition forces. And then he lost the police and the military, and then you have a coup. I think I'll close the loop before we get to the second clip here. I think that, again, this is another one where people need to start having really serious conversations about strategy here, because in Venezuela, they have been able to see off a coup by totally co-opting the military, which means definitionally some problems, okay? Like, that's not great from a state building perspective or a narco perspective or whatever else. But the bottom line is they have preserved their government from a US-backed far-right coup because they have the military. Now, Evo, contrary to all of the endless melodrama about him, and again, there are some valid criticisms from the left and from indigenous people, but the truth is his record is won 4 elections, cut poverty by more than half, and strengthened Bolivian institutions across the board, and even won respect from like places like the Financial Times on his macroeconomic management. Then, of course, you have the infamous Lula example, where the guy lifts 30 or 40 million people out of poverty, is a relentless support. I mean, this guy is out there in Brazil right now saying we're going to respect Bolsonaro's mandate, even as first of all, it's an illegitimate election because Lula is a political prisoner and taken off at the playing field in an election he would have won. And secondly, as Lula is putting forward, he's talking about the connections between this government and the paramilitary complex in Rio de Janeiro. So this is another conversation that people are going to have to be a lot more honest and rigorous about what it actually takes to maintain power in the hemisphere from relentless and constant U.S. interference and local oligarchies. And this speaks to the second clip where, and I think that this is broadly true. I am someone who does not believe in making stupid false equivalencies between the two political parties, because in the margins of those differences are millions of lives, whether they're dreamers or funding levels for SNAP, and those things actually matter. When it comes to foreign policy, there is a profound continuity. Now, on the flip side, for people who get delusional about Trump because occasionally he says anti-war stuff or whatever, this is a message for you too. Because the Trump foreign policy is the next extension of empire. And this is Evo Morales talking about what foreign policy looks like in the hemisphere from the United States, Bush, Obama, and Trump.
No solamente un golpe de Estado interno de los bolivianos y bolivianas, de las oligarquías bolivianas, de algunos miembros de las Fuerzas Armadas o la policía, sino una conspiración externa. Mi delito, mi pecado, ser indio. Y segundo, como movimientos sociales, haber nacionalizado los recursos naturales. quitar las transnacionales, hidrocarburos, tema de minería, pero además de eso, haber reducido la extrema pobreza con programas sociales. ¿Sabe? Detrás de este golpe de Estado estaba transnacionales, Estados Unidos, por tema del litio.
Lithium has become incredibly important for electric cars both in China and the US.
Se sabe muy bien, la ciudad de Potosí, un grupo de cívicos empezaron a cuestionar la industrialización del litio. Bajo una licitación pública internacional, se adjudicaron ser socios, algunos prestar servicio, China y Europa mediante Alemania. Ya empezamos la industrialización y ya estamos exportando cloruro de potasio. El próximo año tenemos que inaugurar carbonato de litio que produzca 350.000 toneladas al año. Tenemos plantas pilotos. De este proyecto energético, que es futuro del mundo, que esté fuera de Estados Unidos. Entonces yo sigo convencido, este es un golpe de Estado al litio, pasando a un golpe de Estado a Evo y a todas las políticas económicas.
That's a slightly different clip than I thought, but it's on a similar theme. In another clip, he said that there is a continuity, maybe not stylistically, but between the kind of core foreign policy initiatives across administrations, and that would connect to what he's alleging there, which, by the way, like, whether or not we will determine more and more what actually happened here in the coming months and years, obviously. But if you don't think that that's a valid interpretation of what happened in Bolivia, one that I happen to totally believe, I'll be transparent, you're delusional. You don't know your history. That this is the story of that region. It's a fucking coup in Guatemala over bananas. Literally. I mean, Banana Republic actually has this is a banned word in the style guide of the show, but it has a problematic origin. And it has to do with countries that we set up right-wing death squads to run so United Fruit Company could have a high margin on its bananas. You better believe lithium is going to be something that's going to determine a lot of geostrategic action in the future. And he set up a situation where they got to cut. I mean, that's really the bottom line. They got to cut. There's going to be a partnership. The government's going to get something, and it's going to be distributed.
It's tough, though. Evo has the demeanor of such a bloodthirsty tyrant.
Doesn't he? I know. He's very, very intense, very vicious guy. You just watched a Michael Brooks show video. Subscribe to get them all. Why wouldn't you? Don't be foolish. Click subscribe below and become a patron as well. Patreon.com/TMBS. Thanks, everybody.